The elders often warned that the loudest laughter in a village could sometimes hide the greatest shame. Few people believed those words. In a peaceful village surrounded by tall Iroko trees, fertile farmlands, and winding streams, people measured one another by wealth rather than character. Fine clothes earned respect. Large compounds attracted admiration. Expensive jewelry commanded attention. Those who possessed little were often ignored, ridiculed, or treated as though they had no value. Among all the villagers, no one endured greater humiliation than a young girl named Amara. She was only 18 years old, yet hardship had carved deep lines of sorrow into her young life. Her father had died after a long illness, leaving nothing behind except a tiny mud house with a leaking roof. A few years later, her mother also passed away after struggling to care for the family alone. From that day onward, Amara faced the world by herself. Every morning before sunrise, she walked long distances into the forest to gather dry firewood. She carried heavy bundles on her head to the village market, hoping to earn enough money to buy a handful of maize or cassava flour. On days when customers were few, she returned home with an empty stomach. Her clothes were patched so many times that it was difficult to tell their original color. Her sandals had broken long ago, forcing her to walk barefoot across rocky paths and scorching sand. Whenever children saw her approaching, many laughed at her appearance. Some adults quietly shook their heads as though poverty itself were a contagious disease. Others deliberately avoided standing close to her during community gatherings. Despite everything, Amara never allowed bitterness to settle in her heart. She greeted every elder respectfully. She offered help whenever someone needed assistance, even when she herself had almost nothing. She shared the little food she had with hungry children who wandered through the village. She comforted elderly widows who had no family to care for them. Many wondered why someone with so little could still find reasons to care about others. What no one realized was that suffering had taught Amara compassion instead of hatred. Every evening after returning from the forest, she carefully swept the compound around her tiny house. She watered the small vegetables growing beside her hut and thanked God for surviving another day. Although life was difficult, she refused to surrender her dignity. Unfortunately, kindness was not something most villagers valued. Whenever celebrations took place, wealthy families gathered beneath colorful canopies decorated with expensive fabrics. Delicious meals filled long wooden tables while music echoed throughout the community. Amara usually stood far away, watching from a distance. No one invited her. No one saved food for her. Many believed poverty meant she did not belong among respectable people. As time passed, the mockery became even worse. Some villagers began blaming her for every strange event. If crops failed, someone whispered that her presence had brought bad luck. If heavy rains damaged farms, others suggested that unfortunate people attracted misfortune to everyone around them. Superstition slowly replaced common sense. Instead of defending her, many people joined the cruel rumors simply because everyone else believed them. She understood that arguing with hatred rarely changed stubborn hearts. Instead, she continued living honestly. One dry season, the village experienced its worst drought in decades. The streams began drying up. Farmers watched helplessly as their crops withered beneath the relentless sun. Food became scarce. Prices in the market doubled. Families who had once considered themselves wealthy suddenly struggled to feed their households. Fear spread throughout the community. Yet even during those difficult months, Amara never stopped helping those weaker than herself. Whenever she found edible wild fruits in the forest, she quietly left some outside the homes of elderly people before sunrise, never waiting for thanks or recognition. Many beneficiaries never discovered who had helped them. Amara preferred kindness that expected nothing in return. One afternoon, while searching for firewood deeper inside the forest than ever before, she noticed something unusual. Hidden beneath thick vines stood an abandoned mud hut almost completely swallowed by nature. Its roof had collapsed years earlier. Large tree roots surrounded its broken walls. Most villagers believed that area was cursed, so nobody visited it anymore. Curiosity encouraged Amara to look closer. Inside the ruined hut, she discovered signs that someone had once lived there many years ago. Old clay pots rested in dusty corners. Broken wooden stools lay scattered across the floor. Everything appeared forgotten by time. While clearing away branches to collect dry wood, she accidentally uncovered a small woven basket buried beneath fallen leaves. The basket was surprisingly well preserved. Inside it rested an old piece of cloth wrapped carefully around a small carved wooden pendant unlike anything she had ever seen. The pendant displayed remarkable craftsmanship. Tiny symbols covered its surface. Although worn with age, it seemed strangely beautiful. Amora considered selling it. Even an ordinary carving might provide enough money to buy food for several weeks. Yet something stopped her. The pendant looked deeply personal, as though it had once belonged to someone who treasured it. Believing it was wrong to profit from another person's forgotten possession, she wrapped it again and carried it home, hoping one day to discover its rightful owner. Days turned into weeks. She asked elderly villagers whether anyone recognized the unusual carving. Most ignored her. Some laughed at her curiosity. Others warned her to throw it away, insisting that abandoned objects often carried evil spirits.